What if I told you that even the strongest walls can crack, that even the most powerful nations can stumble, not because they were weak, but because they ignored the signs? Today, we're not here to spread fear. We're here to confront truth, real, raw, and uncomfortable truth, because only by facing the storm can we rise above it. In this powerful message, inspired by the voice and fire of Denzel Washington, we will explore 11 clear signs that Israel, yes, the startup nation, the military powerhouse, the land of resilience, may be standing on the edge of collapse. But this isn't just about politics, war, or headlines. This is about something deeper. The soul of a nation, the future of its people, the decisions that will shape generations. So I challenge you, don't just watch, listen, reflect, engage, because what you hear in the next 3 minutes might change the way you see not just Israel, but the world around you. This is not the end. This is the wake-up call. Israel's internal political chaos is not just a short-term turbulence. It's a long-burning crisis that has steadily eroded the nation's ability to maintain stable governance. Over the past few years, Israel has gone through an unprecedented number of elections in rapid succession, with none producing a strong or stable majority. This constant political gridlock has left the country in a state of uncertainty, where leadership feels temporary and policy making lacks long-term vision. Political parties are deeply fragmented, often prioritizing short-term gains and ideological victories over national unity. This has led to fragile coalitions that collapse under minor pressure, leaving Israel without consistent leadership during critical moments. While democracy thrives on choice and debate, too much division at the top paralyzes the system, turning leadership into a revolving door. This instability trickles down into public trust. Citizens become disengaged, losing confidence in the ability of politicians to resolve even basic issues. Fosters a climate of protest, civil disobedience, and rising polarization, where every policy becomes a battleground rather than a solution. For example, the recent judicial reform protests involving hundreds of thousands of people revealed how deeply divided the country is on questions of governance and law. This is no longer just about politics. It's about the fundamental identity of the nation. Moreover, political instability creates uncertainty in other vital areas, such as the economy, defense, and foreign relations. Investors become cautious, military decisions become reactive rather than strategic, and diplomatic ties suffer due to inconsistent messaging. Nations that once viewed Israel as a model of strength and clarity now watch with concern as his internal confusion grows. This chaos has not only weakened Israel's ability to respond to external threats, but has also given its adversaries hope that is breaking from within. The most dangerous collapse is not one caused by an enemy from outside. It is the slow erosion of confidence, vision, and direction from within. And that is exactly what internal political chaos threatens to do. Without a clear and united leadership, even a powerful nation like Israel can find itself spiraling into dysfunction, where every new election feels like a reset rather than progress. The widening social divides within Israel are becoming one of the most critical threats to its internal stability and long-term survival. At the heart of this fragmentation is a growing tension between various communities that make up the nation's population, particularly between secular and religious Jews, and between Jewish Israelis and the Arab minority. These divides are not just cultural or ideological. They're becoming deeply emotional and political, influencing everything from education to national service, from laws to social behavior. The secular-religious divide has reached a boiling point, especially around issues like military conscription for ultra-Orthodox Jews, funding for religious institutions, and the role of religion in public life. Many secular citizens feel burdened by an unequal share of national responsibility, while ultra-Orthodox communities feel under constant attack for their way of life. This mutual resentment erodes national unity and creates pockets of society that function almost as separate countries with different values, obligations, and priorities. On the other side, the divide between Jewish Israelis and Arab citizens remains a painful scar. Decades of marginalization, discrimination, and lack of integration have left the Arab population feeling alienated from the national narrative. Though Arab citizens vote, pay taxes, and contribute to the workforce, they often find themselves excluded from key decisions and treated as outsiders in their own country. This sense of alienation has only grown in recent years, especially after the passage of the nation-state law, which many see as legally codifying second-class citizenship. These divides don't just remain in private discussions or academic debates. They erupt into violence and unrest, as seen in the mixed city riots of 2021. Where neighbors turned against each other in shocking scenes of civil disorder. When such divisions become visible on the streets, it signals a deeper fracture in the foundation of national identity. A nation cannot sustain itself when large groups within it no longer believe they are part of a shared future. The danger is not just social tension, it's the potential for internal collapse fueled by mistrust, fear, and inequality. A divided society eventually becomes ungovernable, and Israel's growing internal rifts are a warning sign that unity is no longer guaranteed. The survival of the state depends not only on security from external threats, but also on healing the fractures within. Israel's military has long been regarded as one of the most capable and resilient forces in the world. But in recent years, signs of overextension and morale decline have started to surface. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, have been operating under continuous pressure from multiple fronts. Gaza in the south, Hezbollah in the north, and rising tensions in the West Bank. The frequency and unpredictability of these conflicts have forced the IDF into a state of constant alert, stretching its resources, manpower, and strategic capabilities. Repeated escalations, including rocket attacks, ground incursions, and targeted operations, have placed an immense burden on soldiers, particularly on reservists who are being called up more often and for longer periods. The cycle of engagement without clear long-term resolutions has led to fatigue not just physically but psychologically among the troops and their families. Morale, which once thrived on a strong sense of mission and national pride, is now increasingly challenged by doubts about the political leadership's clarity, direction, and support for the military's efforts. Many soldiers and officers are beginning to question whether their sacrifices are leading to sustainable peace or simply maintaining a fragile status quo. At the same time, internal divisions within Israeli society are affecting the cohesiveness of the military itself. As the IDF reflects the broader society, it is not immune to the ideological rift that weaken unity. Disagreements over judicial reforms, religious exemptions from service, and differing views on the occupation are starting to influence enlistment rates and internal solidarity. Furthermore, international scrutiny and increasing allegations of human rights violations are affecting the global perception of the IDF, which once stood unchallenged in its reputation. This external pressure adds another layer of complexity for young soldiers who are increasingly aware of the court of public opinion beyond Israel's borders. The IDF also faces technological and operational challenges as non-state actors such as Hamas and Hezbollah continue to evolve their strategies with drones, cyber tools, and underground warfare. Despite Israel's superior technology, the asymmetrical nature of these threats forces the military into difficult, drawn-out confrontations. When a defense force is constantly reacting instead of leading, it begins to lose strategic initiative. Over time, this erodes confidence within the ranks and among the population it protects. A military strength is not only in its weapons, but in the belief of its soldiers that they are fighting for something greater than themselves. Israel's economy, once hailed as a startup powerhouse and regional leader, is facing significant internal and external pressures that are undermining its stability and growth. Internally, the rising cost of living has become one of the most pressing issues for everyday citizens. From housing prices to food and utilities, inflation has made basic survival increasingly difficult for the average Israeli family. This economic strain is especially painful in urban centers like Tel Aviv, where rent and home ownership are out of reach for many young professionals and families. The frustration is compounded by wage stagnation and growing inequality between different sectors of society. While the high-tech industry has generated wealth, the prosperity hasn't been evenly distributed. Large segments of the population, especially in peripheral areas and among minority communities, continue to struggle economically, feeling left behind by the very system that is celebrated internationally. Externally, Israel is facing growing economic isolation as international criticism of its policies toward Palestinians intensifies. More countries and institutions are reconsidering trade, partnerships, and investments. The global boycott, divestment, and sanctions (BDS) movement, while not always successful on a mass scale, has made an impact in shaping public discourse and corporate decision-making. Some companies have pulled operations, others have frozen collaborations, and academic and cultural exchanges have seen disruptions. These trends may not break the economy overnight, but they signal a growing discomfort in the global marketplace with Israeli policy, which can lead to long-term reputational damage. In addition to that, the judicial reform crisis has spooked foreign investors, leading to capital flight and a downgrade in economic forecasts. The threat of legal uncertainty makes it harder for businesses to plan long-term investments, especially in industries that rely on global financing and cross-border operations. Startups that once would have launched in Israel are now increasingly being established abroad, particularly in the United States and Europe, where founders feel the environment is more predictable and stable. Economic uncertainty creates a lack of confidence in the system, and that lack of confidence can quickly turn into decline. When the pillars of innovation, investment, and consumer trust begin to crack, the result is a slower, more fragile economy that struggles to adapt in times of crisis. For a country so dependent on its technological edge and global partnerships, these warning signs cannot be ignored. Israel's global image and diplomatic relationships are experiencing a noticeable shift that threatens its long-standing alliances and international support. Once viewed as a resilient, democratic outpost in a volatile region, Israel is now increasingly seen through a more critical lens. This transformation is being driven by a combination of policy decisions, military operations, and an evolving global political climate. Countries that were once unwavering supporters, especially in the West, are beginning to express concern, impose conditions, or even distance themselves from Israel's actions, particularly in regard to its treatment of Palestinians and the broader conflict with Gaza. Public opinion in democratic nations is also changing rapidly. In the United States and Europe, where younger generations are becoming more vocal on human rights issues, support for Israel is no longer guaranteed. This shift is visible in protest, academic debates, media coverage, and legislative discussions. As global civil society becomes more connected and mobilized, governments are under increasing pressure to respond to these sentiments, leading to more critical resolutions in the United Nations and stronger calls for accountability. These growing tensions are not just political, they have economic and strategic consequences. Diplomatic strain with traditional allies can lead to reductions in military aid, diminished intelligence cooperation, and tighter restrictions on defense exports and imports. Additionally, strained relations limit Israel's influence in international forums, making it more difficult to advocate for its security concerns or shape regional agreement. Soft power, which once worked in Israel's favor due to its innovation and historical resilience, is now being undermined by a narrative of aggression and imbalance. This reputational damage affects more than foreign ministries. It trickles down into trade, tourism, and cross-border innovation. In today's interconnected world, perception can be as powerful as policy. Moreover, Israel's handling of criticism, often responding defensively or dismissively, has further complicated its diplomatic standing. Constructive diplomacy requires listening, adapting, and showing a willingness to reform. Without this, allies may begin to reconsider their long-term support. Israel's internal instability only adds to the concern as foreign governments question the reliability and direction of its leadership. If not addressed, this erosion of trust and respect in the international arena could lead to deeper isolation, weakening Israel's strategic position and leaving it more vulnerable to diplomatic and economic consequences. Israel is facing a growing brain drain crisis as a significant number of its brightest minds and most talented young professionals are choosing to leave the country in search of greater stability, opportunity, and personal freedom. This trend is particularly concerning for a nation that has built much of its global reputation on innovation, technology, and entrepreneurial spirit. For decades, Israel has been known as the startup nation, a hub for groundbreaking tech development, military innovation, and scientific research. However, the very people who helped build that reputation are now beginning to lose faith in the country's long-term direction. Many cite reasons such as political instability, economic uncertainty, and deep social divides as motivating factors for their departure. The judicial reform crisis, combined with rising living costs and a feeling of cultural polarization, has made many highly educated professionals feel disconnected from the vision of the country's future. This exodus is particularly visible in sectors like high-tech, medicine, academia, and engineering, industries critical to Israel's economic success and global competitiveness. When talent leaves, it creates a vacuum that is difficult to refill, especially when education systems are also affected by internal political struggles and unequal resource allocation. Furthermore, those who leave often take with them their families, future investments, and networks, weakening the social and economic fabric that sustains innovation ecosystem. Beyond the immediate loss of human capital, the psychological impact of brain drain can be even more damaging. When a country's youth no longer believe that their dreams can be realized at home, it signals a deeper failure of leadership, vision, and trust. It breeds a national atmosphere of resignation and decline, where ambition is exported instead of cultivated domestically. Nations that lose their dreamers and builders risk not only economic decline, but also cultural stagnation and strategic vulnerability. Israel, a country that has always relied on the energy and ingenuity of its people to overcome overwhelming odds, now faces the prospect of weakening from within. If this brain drain continues unchecked, the country could find itself unable to compete on the global stage, unable to maintain its technology edge, and unable to inspire the next generation to stay, build, and believe. So after all these signs, the political breakdown, the social divides, the weakening of the military spirit, the economic pressures, the loss of international support, and the slow departure of talent, one could easily believe that Israel stands on the edge of collapse. But collapse is not destiny. Collapse is a choice. When warning signs are ignored and when leaders stop listening. What we see today is not the end of Israel. It is a crossroads. One path leads to deeper division and decline. The other leads to reflection, reform, and rebirth. Every great nation has faced this moment. The ones that rise again are the ones that are humble enough to admit their mistakes and bold enough to change. Israel still holds immense potential. Its people are brilliant, its spirit is strong, and its history is full of miracles made by human hands. But to survive the storm, the country must unite not around politics, but around purpose. It must invest not only in defense and innovation, but in fairness, equality, and shared vision. If it can do that, it won't collapse. It will rise higher than ever before. Thank you for staying till the end. Stay hopeful, stay strong, and never stop believing in a better future for Israel, for peace, and for humanity.